welcome to Our Schools, Our City. I'm Susana Morgan, Director of Communications and Grants for the school district. And joining me as a co-host today is Dr. Almi Abeyta, our Assistant Superintendent for Schools. Thank you for joining us, Almi.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Well, happy 2019. Can you believe we're already toward the end of January and getting ready for our first snow event of the year?
Yeah, it's gone by really fast.
It has. And we're in New England, so we can expect a little bit of snow. But before then, we've got some really exciting programs that are coming up. As we approach the halfway mark of the school year, this is the time of year when we get to kind of hear and listen firsthand some of the work that our students and educators have been doing throughout the year. Concert season is in full swing, and we are rehearsing, building props, and getting ready for musical performances as well. So on today's show, we'll talk about the role that music and the performing arts plays in helping students develop the skills they need to succeed in life. So we're excited to welcome a group of expert guests today, some students and some educators from our district that will offer a glimpse into upcoming performances across the district. So please, we want you to mark your calendars because we've got some great programs coming up. You want to introduce our guests?
Sure, let's meet our guests. We have Rick Saunders, who's our Director of Music for Somerville Public Schools.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And we have Charles Jabour, our Theater Arts teacher.
Hi,
and faculty advisor at the Highland Theater Company. We have Valerie Farley, a senior at Somerville High School.
Hi, great to be here.
And Elmer Pleitez, sophomore at Somerville High School
It's a
as
pleasure.
well. Thank
Pleasure.
you for coming.
No problem.
It's wonderful to have all of you as our guests today. We're excited to hear a little bit about what you have in store for the Somerville Public Schools and the Somerville community as well. So let's just get started a little bit. Let's hear a little bit about your background and what brought you into your current role as music educators and performers. So Rick, you want to start us off?
Sure, thank you. I love my job. I get to supervise about 20 music educators in Somerville. It wasn't my original dream. My original dream was to be involved in making music and creating music.
Yep.
And I fell in love with education, and that joy that I can really feel when I'm participating in learning music with students is unparalleled for me.
That's right.
And my professional life has really been about creating access to as many students as possible in making music, trying to demystify some ideas culturally that we bring about music making, that music making is only for very, very talented elite musicians, and music making is part of who we are as human beings. It's part of all of our lives and all of our cultures, and hopefully we inspire students to really tap into that and to make music and to be participants and not just consumers.
That's fabulous. And I think anyone who's been in Somerville for any period of time understands that music is for everyone.
Yes,
and
we hope
everyone
so.
has an opportunity to be involved in music. You get a little bit of the best of both worlds because not only do you get to teach, but you also get to perform with the students on a regular basis.
Yes.
And maybe today, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So we've got a special treat coming up.
Yes, great.
Elmer, what about you?
Yeah, so I've been a musician ever since I was little. Pretty much started with my dad. It's always been in the family, my grandpa also. But really my dad was a great influence in me wanting to play music. And especially with these programs at not only the high school, but also in the middle school before I was there. It influenced me a lot to want to continue and pursue this as a career in the future,
That's
pursue it
fabulous.
into college,
Good. Well, we're looking forward to learning a little bit more about what you're doing and to hearing you perform later on today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie?
So I always really liked theater, but then I was kind of scared to sort of try out for a more intense role in it. And then when I got to the high school, I was kind of okay, well, if I want to be involved in this, I have to try for those larger roles and yeah.
And you've been very, very involved this year in a couple of performances so far, and we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about what you did and what's coming up. Charlie, what about you? What brought you to the performing arts, and what trajectory did you take?
My story is very similar. I'd always kind of found a community in a theater program at schools, and I moved around a lot when I was young. So whenever I would find myself in a new school, I would always kind of seek out the theater department because that's where I knew I would kind of find home base and maybe a group of people who would welcome me and show me the ropes maybe.
That's great.
So I moved around. I eventually I found myself in a high school that didn't have a theater program, and I was lost. So So I started one there, and I was 14. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know anybody, but I had to kind of find a way of making it work. So that's how I learned how to build a theater program, and I guess the rest is kind of history. I'm just still trying to build that program for that kid who's trying to find a place to go.
Great. And that's kind of what you're doing, right, with the Highlander Theater Company?
Absolutely. That's the hope.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
hope is that it's a place where any student, no matter how much they think that they might be good at it or might not be good at it, like Val's story, can take a risk, that
Yeah.
we create a place where people, just the minute they walk in the door, feel like they're home.
And it's interesting because there's so many different ways that students can get involved, or that people that can get involved in the performing arts or in music. It doesn't have to be actually performing. There's a lot that happens behind the scene, as we'll learn from Valerie later on.
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful. So what role do you think the performing arts plays in helping prepare students both for academic success and for success in life?
Well, in education lately, we talk a lot about social emotional learning, and theater arts and music really taps into that element. Students learn so many things like, creative expression, and through that, they learn things like self-regulation. They also learn how to be, partners in learning,
Right.
how to kind of have a role that supports other people, and I call it the collective learning experience. So often today, students are learning kind of individually. I see a lot of kids doing wonderful stuff, but on Chromebooks and on one-on-one devices. And music and theater arts is almost the exact opposite of that. It's a collective learning experience. So students get to work with each other, problem solve, be creative, figure out things like how to negotiate, how to kind of form relationships. I mean, all of those 21st century skills
Right.
that we talk about that happens in the context of a music or performing arts ensemble.
A lot of times it's kind of a buzzword, but we hear project-based learning. And would you say that music and the performing arts in general are very much about project-based learning?
I mean-
and how would you describe it to the layman?
Oh man, I would go so far as to say that that the arts, and I can speak from the lens of theater, that particularly theater is perhaps one of the best, most comprehensive examples that we have of project-based or experiential learning. And what I hear, what that means to me is an approach to teaching and learning that involves asking students to take pieces from all of these other realms of study,
Right.
and to apply it to a tangible experience or project. That's essentially what project-based learning, that's my interpretation of it. And certainly there's been a lot written about it, but it's one of my favorite things in the world when we're working on a theater production and we're taping out the stage, which is what we do at the beginning,
Right.
before we have a set. And we're calculating the angles, and we're plotting points, and a student there who thinks that they hate math, and it's just that wonderful moment when I get to look at them and go, you're doing geometry right now, right?
And you're doing it really well.
And you're doing it really well.
Yep.
But that for me is one of the things that makes theater such an exciting tool as an educator,
Right.
because it's that access point.
Absolutely. So from a student's perspective, I'm curious to hear a little bit about what you've learned that kind of surprises you a little bit through being involved in theater arts or in music.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely learned about taking things from other disciplines and applying them. Just a recent example was for my English midterm project. I ended up writing a play that was about our impacts on certain species of birds, which is an environmental science topic, but I wrote a play which is more theater, but it was for my English class. So it was just taking things from multiple areas and just applying them together for one big project.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that especially with arts, music in general, it's a way to connect different things at the same time, a form of communicating without communicating, you can say.
Right.
Especially with music, I believe, with my performances and my different things, I feel like you're always able to lift up a crowd or make everybody happy just from playing a rhythm or playing music. So I definitely think that music and art and theater and all that has a great impact on everybody in every aspect, and can make things a lot easier for everyone, and just make it well around just a better place, especially at school.
That's great. Now, you mentioned that you've been involved in music for some time. What would you say to one of your fellow sophomores at the high school who maybe hasn't? what would you say to them about music and why you're involved and why you would encourage them to get involved in it?
Well, I would say that it's definitely an opportunity that you should take, even if you might think you're not involved with music or that you wouldn't like it. There's always a reason or why you should try it to see if you like it, because you're not sure if you're gonna like it or if you won't. Especially for some people that I know in my classes that when first started the courses, they were like, oh, I don't like this is annoying doing this. But then as time went on and as we progressed, they started to show more interest in it and wanted to actually play the music and actually involve and become more creative, which became a big impact for them, because that's something that they can carry on to be furthermore if they want to continue music.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
have
Great
a follow-up question. We have a lot of middle schoolers that are coming up to the high school. What would you say to a middle schooler who's debating, should I be in sports, should I be in arts, should I be in theater? I know that's something that I grappled with as a student. What would you say to encourage a student that's grappling with all of these choices at the high school, and how did you make that decision?
Well, I would just say try as many things as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can, because you never know if you're gonna like something. You can't just say oh, that doesn't seem like something I would like, so I'm not gonna do it. Try it, and then if you don't like it, you don't like it. Just get all the experiences that you can, because there are so many.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when I was going into my freshman year, I had a couple older siblings that were already at the high school, and they were always encouraging me to try things. There's always people telling you join clubs, do different things that you're able to use with your extra time. Always have something to do. Never just you go home, go sit down on a computer instead of just going out, maybe playing a sport, doing some music. Definitely something that everybody should try to do, because it's going to help you in many ways, mentally, physically. It's always a great help.
It's a really great way to develop a network of friends as well. Right?
Yeah,
to kind
definitely.
of expand your network of friends, especially now with so much communication happening through social media.
Yeah.
It provides you with that one-on-one connection.
And the wonderful thing about Somerville High School is you don't have to choose between sports and
Yep.
music or theater, because Somerville as a community has made a commitment to having theater and music during the school day,
Right.
and sports happen extracurricularly. There's a lot of kids that can do both, and we try to stop the barriers from kids participating, like Val said, in as many things as possible.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, someone mentioned that there's different levels, different skill levels, and people enter at different times of their lives, enter into either music or performing arts. So, how do you deal? Is there a typical trajectory for students getting involved, and how do you deal with students that are at different skill levels and make sure that they feel included and that they're active members of whatever production you're working on?
Well, one of the unique things about Somerville Public Schools, the Music and Theater Arts Department, is we accept everyone. So kind of not typical of most high schools, especially in the music realm, where there's audition requirements and an orchestra would probably have a lot of auditions and a lot of what I call barriers to music making. Mm-hmm. We did away with that in Somerville, which is wonderful.
Right, yeah.
It's created a lot of opportunities for what we call tiered instruction. Mm-hmm. In fact, Robert Schumann, the famous classical romantic composer from the 19th century, said, not everyone can play first violin.
Right.
And it's true. So an orchestra is kind of like a microcosm of society where there's parts for everybody. It just takes a little work for the instructors and the teachers to tier instruction and make different parts for students' abilities. So we take students that are total beginners and we put them in a room with students who've been playing for 5 or 6 years, and we give them different parts.
Right.
And we have kind of concentric circles of learning so that students who might be one level above the newcomer have opportunities to mentor and practice with the newcomers, and they learn a lot better from their peers than they do from an old guy like
Yep.
me. So it's really exciting, and it works. I mean, the outcomes are amazing. It works. It's still quality music making, and that was one of the criticisms of this model when we first adopted it. That's wonderful that you're taking everybody, but how is the final outcome going to be?
Right.
And the outcome is wonderful.
The
you know?
outcome is wonderful based on what I've heard.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You know, going to the concerts recently has just been incredible. And
Thank
I
you.
really do encourage the community to go out, stop by, listen, and enjoy.
Yes, you
because
can't
it's
beat the
unique.
price of admission.
You're absolutely
Yes.
right.
And there's many opportunities as well. It seems like you've been had a busy December, January.
Yes, yes. In fact, on January 18th in fact, the 17th, January 17th is our beginner concert for
Right.
instrumental, beginning instrumental learners, grades 3 through 5. And there'll probably be about 600 beginning students on stage.
Which is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
About how many students do you have involved in music and theater arts right now across the district?
Yeah, we're looking at about probably 1,400 students across
Wow.
the district involved in instrumental music, choral music, and theater arts. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So while you get ready for a little performance, we're gonna ask Charlie and Valerie some questions.
Great.
Okay? So stay tuned. We're gonna bring some great music to you. So can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, Rent, how that went, what that involved? And I understand that you were actively involved as an assistant producer for that?
Yeah, so I stepped into the role of assistant director and dramaturge. So I helped a little bit with some of the staging, but my main role with that was to look at a lot of the context for what was happening during the 1990s, specifically with Rent, because there were a lot of like sensitive topics in Rent with like the HIV/AIDS crisis. So I did a lot of research with that to make sure that just everyone that was involved was on the same page.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us what a dramaturge is?
Yeah, sorry. So it's just
This is a learning process for us as well.
it's just like the person that is doing that research and contextualizing to just make sure that everybody has the same information. And
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
I like to call the dramaturge the resident know-it-all of the
That's
performance.
perfect. So what's coming up?
Well, what's coming up we're in rehearsal literally right this very moment. We are in rehearsal for Holy Broth, which is our festival piece, which I'm going to kick that over to Val to talk a little bit about Holy Broth because Val is our student director for that piece.
That's great.
Yeah, so Holy Broth is a great play. It's about a Puerto Rican girl named Ashley who's 15, but she's getting a D in her Spanish class, and she's trying to connect with her grandmother who speaks predominantly Spanish.
Right.
And so they're just working to find that connection, even though they have a language barrier between them.
That's fabulous. And there will be a public performance, right?
Yes,
And when is that?
February 8th.
February 8th. Great. Okay,
February
so
8th
mark your
at
calendars.
7 p.m. February 8th at 7 p.m.
And Charlie, you and I had talked a little bit about several weeks ago about how you were working to bring in partners to be part of all of these productions.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of Holy Broth, if there are partners, or
Absolutely.
any of the other upcoming productions?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really excited about what's happening this year with theater,
I am too.
specifically because we're increasing community engagement in such a meaningful way. This is Holy Broth is the second of our first 4 production season
Wow.
of the Highlander Theater Company, which we just started last year as a way to make sure that every student at Somerville High School had the opportunity to participate in theater, whether in the audience, on stage, backstage, or as a part of a class. So what makes me most proud is that every single one of those productions has partnered with a organization or a program or initiative, either as a part of the school community or as part of the greater Somerville community.
That's fabulous.
So for Rent, we worked with the Somerville High School Gender and Sexuality Alliance, who Val worked closely with on the dramaturgy. For Holy Broth, we are working with the Welcome Center, and we're working with the English Language
great.
Education Department.
Great.
And we've got a whole host of other partners, which I won't take up more time talking about right now, but there's plenty, and I encourage people to go to our website, highlandertheater.org, to check out the whole slate.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that sounds great. So we're going to come back to that, but now we've got a little performance coming up. Rick, do you want to introduce the piece, or?
Sure.
Maybe you wanna
So
share
this
with
is
us?
kind of typical of what we would do in a world percussion class. This piece is kind of a hybrid based on some bachata rhythms from the Dominican Republic and some samba rhythms from Brazil.
Great.
All right. All right.
went around right before the winter break and were performing at the different schools. I mean, it was just so evident how much you enjoyed playing and performing for others. So I have a question for the students. What is it like to know that what you're doing, that you're bringing the music out to the community, is kind of shaping how people feel about your community?
Well, I definitely think it's amazing to think about that. I think that, like I said earlier, how music, theater, and art all have a great impact on everybody. So I feel like being able to bring this music, all of it, to other people, and using this as a way to impact and make these people feel as if they can do the same is amazing, because you know, it's something that many should want and should do, because it helps in many ways, at least for me, and it's definitely something that I'm grateful for.
That's fabulous. This year you have a really large drum corps, right?
Drumline, yes.
Drumline, there we go.
Yes.
My terminology is not
That's
quite,
okay.
quite
Sure.
there. How many are in your drumline? And you have a very diverse group this year, right?
We do. So Drumline is a class offered during the day, which really helps in recruiting students. Right now we have I think 22 students who are involved in either advanced drumline or introductory drumline.
Right.
And if you saw us at the winter performance, you would notice that they performed together. And like Elmer said previously, it's amazing for newcomers who initially might be a little timid regarding their skill to be quickly integrated to a higher level ensemble. And it's just joyful. It's great.
It's really one of the things that was most amazing to me is watching all of these different groups come together and perform together so well. And I'm not sure if you build in like rehearsal time with the entire group, but I would imagine maybe you don't have much time to do that.
We don't have
but-
much time to do that. We try, especially before a touring or concert season, to have
Yep.
one or two joint rehearsals, but usually no, we don't.
Right.
Sections.
Yeah.
Valerie, is there something that stands out to you in terms of watching the crowd after you've put so much time and effort into the behind-the-scenes work and see it all come together?
Yeah, I mean, this was my first year being an assistant director or a director, just not on stage with Highlander Theater Company, so I missed that up until this year, and I actually got to see the audience reacting to the show.
That's
and
awesome.
that was really cool to
Yeah.
see it affecting people in real time. Was really awesome.
How long have you been involved with theater arts? Has it been a while?
I did a little bit in middle school, but I was kind of afraid to get too involved. So
Yep.
mostly just in high school. I've been on stage with Highlander Theater Company, and I've done some assistant directing with the Kennedy School Drama Club.
That's great. So let's take a little bit of time to talk about what's coming up.
Sure.
I know there are school performances, but beyond school performances, you also perform for the community. So can you share a little bit about what's coming up, let our audience know?
Sure. Well, something very special that the music department participates in every year is our Martin Luther King breakfast in Somerville, and Elmer will be there
Great.
with our world percussion ensemble on the 21st from 10 to 11:30 at the East Somerville Community School, and it's a wonderful event. And if anyone is interested in the history of music in the civil rights movement, it's so much a part of the civil rights movement. And Martin Luther King Jr. himself sang in his choruses from the time he was 4 years old to the time he left high school. His mom was a choir director and an organist. So music is just a big part of of discussing the life of Martin. And
Right.
we also have, by the end of January, every school will have had at least one winter performance, a whole school performance. So everyone from pre-K through 8th grade in the Somerville Public Schools would have had an opportunity to be on stage, singing, playing instruments, expressing themselves. And
That's
I think we're all
fabulous.
really proud of the fact that we give everybody an opportunity to perform. Our Healy School concert is going to be on the 30th of January.
Okay.
Also on the 30th of January, we have a Martin Luther King Jr. Argenziano concert.
Okay, great.
And on the 24th, we have our West Somerville Neighborhood School winter concert. And just,
A lot of music making
a lot
coming
of
up in the
music
district.
happening. Yes.
And the Martin Luther King celebration at the East Somerville Community School is a wonderful, wonderful event that will include music and also essayists, student essayists from our district that were selected to read their MLK essays. It's a wonderful, free family event, so we invite everyone to attend. So very quickly, Charlie, what else is coming up? Believe it or not, we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to share some of the other productions that are coming up through the end of the year.
Well, the great news is that that website has got all the information right there
Great.
too. So they can go to highlandertheater.org to check that out. But we've got on February 8th, we'll have the public performance of Holy Broth. On March 21st and 22nd, we're doing a production called Silent Sky, which is a fantastic story about women pioneering in astronomy.
Wonderful.
And then really exciting on May 16th and 17th is our Highlander Fringe Festival, which will feature entirely original work by exclusively by students.
Oh, that's fantastic. Look forward to all of those. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got about a minute left. Is there anything else that you all would like to share before we wrap up our show? We'll be there.
Yes,
So just a
thank
very
you.
quick reminder that, as Rick mentioned, Monday the 21st is Martin Luther King Day. It is a school holiday, so all schools and district offices will be closed, but please do plan to attend the celebration at the East Somerville Community School. And with that, we have a few thank yous.
Yes, I'd like to thank all of our guests. Thank you for coming today. We're just so grateful that you could make it. Thank you, Rick, Charlie, Valerie, and Elmer for being here. And we'd like to thank our crew, Steve, Joe, Lenny, and Linda. We're just so grateful for all that you do and Bill, and
Ben Martin.
Bill and Ed and Ben. Thank you for all that you do. We're so grateful. And a special thank to you, our viewers, for watching Our Schools, Our City, and for being our partners in education. See you next month.
That's right. Thank you all. And Almi, a very special thank you for joining me as a
Sure.
co-host today. It's been
You're
great.
welcome.
We'll see you next time.